Go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to GK for Free, the GK for Free podcast. We are your source on the internet for valuable free goalkeeping content, and it is our goal to be the best source on the internet for valuable free goalkeeping content. So welcome. This is episode, what is this, 11?
I think it's 11. Yeah.
Episode number 11, and this is a part two of a two-part series on 1v1s. So we're going to talk specifically about phase 3 1v1s, and we'll go into detail on that in a second. But first, my awesome co-host slash producer, now we're getting more technical and complicated, Will Marshall, everybody.
Hey, everyone. How we doing? Hope everyone's feeling good.
Yeah, this special Thanksgiving week edition. Couple of things that are unusual about this. One, I'm home. Usually I'm doing this driving down the road in my car, and Will and I were just chatting briefly before getting started here, and I'm like super uncomfortable right now, just actually being like sitting still, looking into my computer. I went through, obviously did a little background and stuff and trying to make it feel a little bit more professional, but man, I'm probably going to be like 12 times worse than normal because I'm like actually sitting here looking at myself. So bear with us. Bear with me. Will be great. He always is.
You'll be all right. You might notice some more things, some habits you didn't know you had. But I mean,
Yeah.
I've never noticed anything. But it usually takes yourself to watch yourself and notice some things that
Fortunately, I don't have enough time to go back and like watch these again most of the time. So and the nice thing too about being here is I'm not going to have to like go back, hopefully, and edit out like dead spots where we're like, or there's no tunnels. So we should be good to go. What's new in your world right now, Will?
Well, I was actually, before we started this, I was working on the Marshall Fitness goalkeeper strength and conditioning program. I'm getting there. It took me a long time. Like, I had the framework for so long, and now I'm very close to having it done. So I think I might even have it done today. I want to send it over to you to have you look at it just to see what you think, and then I'll have that out there in the world.
The post that you posted today, just with the, it's like, it's so simple, but and I remember a long time ago, just in conversation, specifically kind of like with Mike Whiteman, who's the director of sports science, strength conditioning for the Pittsburgh Riverhounds. He's he's been with the program since day one, and he for a while there, we were in like a dialogue, probably 5-8 years ago when I was still playing, and all about like what would a fitness test, or what are measurable like measurable tests for goalkeeper fitness and or explosive power. And like Will posted this video today just of himself just doing like a simple no step dive, like just the same way you do a vertical jump, right? From just an athletic position, vertical jump, you jump up as high as you can, and then you touch the thing, and they measure how high your vertical is, which is a measure of your leaping ability, explosive power, whatever you want to call it. And Will shot this video of himself doing basically the same thing except diving, right? And basically measuring how far you dive. And honestly, like, it's hard. It's gonna be hard for me today not to just hijack this whole podcast just to talk about that the whole time, because I think I commented underneath it like something like
revolutionary,
simple but revolutionary, maybe, because like this is the stuff that's kind of been missing from goalkeeping forever, missing from soccer for a long time, but it's getting better. But like for goalkeeping specifically, if you can actually measure, if you've got you've got a goalkeeper's physical, size, their height, their weight, their wingspan, stuff like that that's relevant. But then if you actually start to have measurable, max, I don't even know what you'd call it, because it's not necessarily the distance of where you land. It would have to be like where your feet, like, that part is up there, but I just think that there's like a lot there to like dig into and figure out, and it's really cool. I'm really excited to see if you're going to be putting things like that in with this program, because not even as a test or a way to measure, but as just a way of developing explosive power specifically to goalkeeping. Like, that's like,
Mhm. Yeah. So my main concern with that kind of stuff, I guess, with adding in diving to a strength and conditioning program would be just, I guess, I don't know, the fatigue aspect. And
sure,
if you're
absolutely.
like, if you're doing that so many times, which as of right now, I have that exact video that I did, I have that listed at in parts of the program, and just
Well,
to
it's
go
just
out
like
and
plyo training. It's like jump
right,
training. You know what I mean?
right.
Very very few strength and conditioning coaches actually do a very good job of number of volume and number of reps you're doing for a
Mhm.
plyometric exercise.
Yeah,
As soccer athletes, naturally we just want to do more, 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 more,
yeah.
like
You
do
don't
it
need
to
that much.
fatigue. But the
No.
whole point of doing something, most of the time, plyometric efforts are max efforts.
Hmm.
So
You don't need a lot.
you want to do a handful of these. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? You want to build up and then want to do a handful. It's not something where
yeah.
you're going to go out and do 3 sets of 10.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, right now I think I have it like three by four each or something like that.
Yeah,
And I mean, my concern was just like if you're so concerned about the push,
yeah,
is there room for the shape to go bad or something like
sure.
that?
Yeah, I think
Which,
it's just a component. You know what I
yeah,
mean? It's a very valuable component.
yeah. I just wouldn't want like this program being a breeding ground for bad habits.
Yeah,
Which I don't know if I don't know if there's anything I could do to prevent that at all, but
yeah.
it was just in my head. But I mean, I
No,
set
I
that
think
video up that way on purpose, like straddling the line. And I mean, I
right.
covered like 4.5 yards on both sides, which I mean, a goal is what, 8 feet across, 8 feet wide. So
8 yards. Yeah,
8 yards, right, right, right.
yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I think the fact that you're concerned about that is the right way to approach. Anytime you're building anything, I think the best place to approach it from is what's the first thing people are gonna, attack about this? What's the
Mhm.
first thing that's gonna hurt people's feelings? What's the first thing they're gonna try to poke holes in? And if you're approaching it that way, then I think you kind of, you it's not like you protect yourself from all that, but you definitely, you know, come from a better place, I think.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But no, I just thought it was cool. I thought it was, again, simple and effective. And I've always been the goalkeeping world's kind of split. I think I even put a question like this on my Instagram story a long time ago, maybe a month or two ago. Like, um, I can't remember specifically what it was about, but it was like training equipment, apparatuses, like strength ball,
Oh
like
yeah. Mhm.
medicine balls or strength ball, like for your explosive power, for your strength component, for that side. Do you think that should be included as part of your training on your feet on the field during your goalkeeping training, or should that be something that's kept separate in the gym? I've
Mhm.
always preferred sort of keeping that side of things in the gym. Do you know what I mean? But I know there's a lot of soccer players, even a lot of pro soccer players out there that they want all their training to be all their training. So
Right.
they want that stuff to be included in the goalkeeping piece too. And there's no right or wrong. It's just I've always liked keeping the gym separate.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I agree
I
with
don't
that.
I don't like I don't pull bands out too often or hurdles or things like that
Yeah, I mean,
in training sessions.
it feels like a lot of extra stuff, which
Yeah, sure. And you're getting further and further away from what's happening in the game.
what's real. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a little bit off topic, but I really wanted to make sure we talked about that because again it was just a super super sort of simply mind blowing
Yeah.
thing for me just seeing you do it and not
Yeah.
never having thought about it that way before. So
Good.
very
I'm glad.
cool. So
Awesome.
um, if you could take 3 minutes and talk about what we did in the last podcast. Um, so last podcast was 1v1s, was part one of 1v1s, and it was phases 1 and 2.
Mhm.
When we talk about 1v1s, we typically talk about them in 3 phases. So can you sort of summarize phase 1 and 2 in 2 to 3 minutes?
Sure. So phase one would be an instance where a ball is played through your back line, and as the goalkeeper, you have a really good chance of getting there 100% before any attacking player. Um, and so that would consist of the goalkeeper, announcing that they're going to come get the ball, yelling keeper, and then going into the ball hands first, looking to hold it, maintain possession, and then you play out from there. And so that looks like a ball that's played too far in front or too fast for an attacking player to get to, and then the goalkeeper can get there no problem. Phase two would be a similar situation to that, where the ball is maybe it's a better ball. The attacker has a better chance of getting there, but the goalkeeper also has a good chance of getting there too, which is what we would call a 50-50. And so we look to get our hands on the ball at the same time or slightly before or maybe slightly after the ball's kicked, to kind of break up the play and give ourselves some time to reset and let some defenders come back. That could also be an instance where the attacking player takes a prep touch, and then that is our cue to go and get our hands on the ball, again, either before or at the same time or slightly after the ball's kicked.
Good, love it. And I really like on that last one that you said prep touch, because
yeah.
that was part of our discussion about phase two, was sort of changing the way that we think and the way that, these are sort of traditionally coached and taught, changing the idea of going to challenge with our hands when an attacker takes a big touch, and changing that thought from big touch to prep touch. So if we already established some level of proximity and we're able to get within, I keep saying 8 yards, maybe that's a little bit far, but definitely 6 to 8 yards. Once that attacking player takes a touch preparing them to shoot, that's your signal to go and tackle the ball with your hands. So that's really good. Will, do you remember because I came up with like a little buzzword for each phase. Do you remember what the theme words were for phase one and phase two?
Phase one was speed, and phase two was bravery.
Yeah, there you go. Good. Good. So that sets us up pretty nicely for phase three. Do you remember what the word was for phase three?
I believe it was patience.
Yeah, patience. Good. Yeah, perfect. So Will passes the test.
3 for 3.
Yeah, 3 for 3. And sort of this we talked about too, like more important than what you do, how you do it, the technique that you use in these 1v1 moments is proximity, is your ability to get as close to the ball as possible before it is shot. And obviously in a phase one, there's not a shot. You're getting there before all that happens. But in that moment, getting there as early as possible. And the phase one can turn into a moment where there is contact, or is a phase two, there is a collision moment with an attacker if you hesitate or you move too slowly. So that's why speed was the big word for phase one. And then with all of these, what we also talked about was how important your starting point was, and kind of the difference in a young, inexperienced goalkeeper and an elite goalkeeper, whether that's a college goalkeeper or a professional goalkeeper, or even elite youth level, having sort of a high level of tactical awareness and being able to read the moment, read the fact that, I think there's a 1v1 about to happen here. It looks like there's a through ball about to be slipped, or this attacker's getting at my last defender and I think they're going to get around him. So in both those moments, instead of staying where you'd normally be, sort of in a conservative shot stopping position 2 or 3 or 4 yards off your line, cheating up to 5 or 6 yards, maybe even 7 yards, anticipating that 1v1 or through ball moment is going to happen. And that sort of being kind of the secret to being really good at this, and the secret to really to making your decision making easier, because a big piece of all this is decision making and not hesitating. And the more connected you are to the play, the easier your decisions are. So if you can get out there a little bit early, hopefully that makes your decision whether to close or stay that much easier. Go ahead.
So I read a book about a month or two ago called The Sports Gene by David Epstein, and one of the main points in this book it was about what makes the best players the best, and it's not so much like freak ability or they're just natural athletes, it's their ability to read the game.
Right.
And like there was an example with Marshall Faulk for the St. Louis Rams. Like he could tell you where everybody was on the field and what they were about to do. And so essentially the better you are at reading the game, the better you're going to be, regardless of how athletic or naturally athletic you are.
Yeah. And honestly, I hope everyone that's serious about this gets some point to you're not everyone obviously is going to get a chance to train with high level professional goalkeepers, but I think it's really valuable when you can get a chance to, and a lot of MLS, if you're in the United States, a lot of MLS teams practices are open, or they host a good number of open sessions that the public can come and watch. I know that happens all over the world in other countries as well. Like, if you can go watch these, the coolest thing about going to watch the best goalkeepers in the world train is that you can stand right behind them and watch everything that you do. And most of the time, if you have some level of ability and have played for a while, you can, part of you can actually say, you know what, I could maybe hang out there with them. I could do a little bit of this. That they're not that much better than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of that's true when we're talking about if you're just solely breaking it down into technique or athleticism or ability to save a ball or catch a cross or kick a ball, right? Those are all things that are, you know, sure, they're probably better at all those things than the rest of us, but not as much as we probably think they are.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool to see that that's the fact that they're not that far apart. But what really separates these guys is absolutely everything that you just said. It's the ability to be two steps ahead with their thought.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And even more than that, specific to goalkeeping, the lack of mistakes that those guys
Mm-hmm.
and ladies make at that level. Especially when you get to college, it's crazy how similar everyone is from an ability level. Like from the difference between number 1 and number 3 at an elite college program is so hard to tell, and a lot of times that's why the teammates don't even know who the best goalkeeper is,
Yeah.
but the coaches always have a pretty solid idea, and they're usually pretty right.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're probably, because they have more experience than everybody else out there, they can actually tell that the best one is probably the one that's going to handle all those things better and make fewer mistakes and be more tactically on the front foot. Maybe, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. There's certainly exceptions to that, but
Yeah.
so phase 3 is a little different. Phase 3, in both phase 1 and phase 2, there were moments where we were either getting to the ball before the attacker or getting to the ball same time as the attacker. Phase 3 moments are basically like an out and out breakaway, a moment where the attacker has the ball and they have possession and control of the ball. And for whatever reason, they're in on goal behind the last defender, usually dribbling, but they could have received it, taking a big touch and run after it, or they're receiving a through ball and catching up to it just before we're able to get there. And so we have to play these a lot differently than the other two. And in both phase 1 and phase 2, because the attacker didn't have possession, we were allowed to move sort of at top speed, recklessly, whatever you want to call it, as fast as possible. The big difference between phase 1 and phase 2, and then now phase 3, is we can't do that. So, I think, again, with all of these, I'm trying to find maybe one little thing that we could show or teach differently than it's always been done in the past. We're not going to go into a ton of detail on different blocking techniques and blocking shapes. I'll probably touch on them, and maybe we'll have just sort of a last little blurb on them. But most of this is going to be about how you approach the attacker, how you close down the attacker, and then set yourself up to be successful. And I think when we approach it that way, the blocking shapes and the technique of using a blocking shape kind of becomes a little bit irrelevant, because what you're going to hear from us mostly is just how much we're going to try to focus on you being able to keep control of your body and still being able to be a goalkeeper and move and react until we get within a certain distance, and then maybe we'll talk about blocking a little bit. So I don't have a really specific sort of plan for getting into this. I will sort of say, because last time I tried to make you figure this out too. So what's sort of the historic approach when we talk about goalkeeper, that this player has beaten your last defender, they've got the ball on their foot, they're 22 yards, 25 yards from goal, they're charging in on goal. Let's say that you were smart, you saw it coming, you got up to 5 or 6 yards. as they're breaking behind your defender. So now there's, 15 yards of space between you and between the attacker. What has sort of the historic approach to the way that you close down that attacker been in terms of the way that you were taught it? I used to teach it.
Yeah. Well,
And
so
I'm mainly looking for sort of the speed
well,
aspect.
in terms of how fast you want to approach, it was always take one step for every step that the striker takes towards you or the attacker takes towards you.
Yeah, so perfect. So that's more or less saying like whatever speed the attacker, is in on goal, whatever speed they're coming, you match their speed basically. You're matching every move they make. And then we always kind of had to scale it back a little bit and say, well, yes, but you also have to be able to stop and set and have control. So,
Mm-hmm.
you probably have to be moving a little bit slower than them
Yeah.
so that you can have that control. And I think I always, as a pro player, I think I always did it differently than that and didn't realize that until maybe the last couple of years when I started coaching pro players. Because if you teach that approach to elite goalkeepers, there's just no way to get to any kind of position where you can have any kind of real effect, especially
Yeah.
against pro players. Do you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
So if your plan is just to go very slowly and patiently out towards this attacker, at no point can you, again, we go back to proximity, at no point can you get to have close enough proximity or close enough range that you can, I don't want to necessarily say affect him, because I don't want us thinking affect the attacker, because when we do too much in a phase 3 moment, we
Mm-hmm.
tend to give things away. But I will say that there is an element of that, but also just being able to make a save.
Yeah.
So, so I guess what I'm trying to get at now is get away from that, right? So if you're a coach or you're a player that's learned that the speed that you're meant to close down an attacker is match their speed or go just a step slower than their speed or step for step, like we were talking about before, I think we got to throw that out the window.
Yeah.
So what am I gonna propose?
I think you're going to propose to, trying to think of the right words because I know there is a phrase that's used. So you want to essentially close the space fast and then arrive slow. So steal as much space as you can very quickly,
Yeah.
and then slow yourself down to be able to have your body under control.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. That's awesome. That's right. That's right on what I'm getting at. And so I did it. You were out there. We did a session with all 1v1s with, and this was interesting to see the side by side, I think, because Anthony Wimbia was the third string goalkeeper on the Riverhounds pro team last year as a rookie, mid-major Division I college starting goalkeeper at Bowling Green State University. Good goalkeeper, right? And he was training with two of our oldest academy boys keepers who are both seniors in high school, uncommitted, looking to go somewhere to play, who are good. I think they'll both be Division I goalkeepers. But what was your take on the big difference between the both of them when we got into these phase 3 moments? What was so different about Anthony and about them?
Anthony was just so much faster.
Yeah.
And I think it was a mix between him knowing the cue and reading the cues, and then also just from an athleticism standpoint too. Like, I mean, he just knew when to move, and then he was faster overall.
Yeah. So, yeah, perfect. And so this is the thing with phase 3, like, and it's really tricky, right? Because phase 3 typically ends up only two things can happen as the end result from an attacking perspective. An end result for a phase 3, like if the attacker has the ball in his foot and I'm the goalkeeper and I'm closing his down, he's either going to shoot at some point and try to beat me with a shot, whether that's early or as I'm getting on top of him or somewhere in between, or he's going to try to dribble around me. And typically, you don't see a ton of that at a high level, and more so at the youth level probably. But that's why if we're too aggressive and play it more like a phase 1 or a phase 2, or even if we go into these blocking shapes in phase 3 often that put us on the ground, we then leave ourselves vulnerable for that goalkeeper to get, or for that attacker to get around us. And a good attacker is always trying to do what to a goalkeeper in a 1v1?
Make him go to ground.
Yeah, make him go to ground. That's how they win, right? Then we lose control, and they can either shoot it where we're not at that point, or, like I said, dribble around us. So I think so even though speed is not necessarily, it wasn't our word for phase 3, because patience is our word for phase 3, and those are like the opposite. And that's why this is tricky. This is a really tricky one to get right, and it takes a lot of practice and a lot of experience to get really good at it. But I think the longer you're, and I was talking to somebody else about this recently, kind of the longer you're around the game, the longer you play it and coach it and just see things happen, the more you kind of learn that there are some of these things that sort of always happen the same way, no matter what, no matter where in the world, no matter what the level, just because of the nature of the way that the game's played. And I was talking about this in context of playing out of the back, that it took me to the point where I was like 35 or 36 years old, where I finally got comfortable enough with the goalkeepers I was working with, because I'd seen it enough times, that I started telling all the goalkeepers I was working with at any level, from pro to youth, to start turning out blindly when they're receiving a back pass, always turning out the other side, no matter what, right? Even if you have no idea what's on the back side, turn out anyway, and it'll be on, right? Having the bravery and the courage just to turn out.
Yeah.
And there may be a time or two where that burns you, especially in your development, but like, that's how field players play. They understand these things. Goalkeepers are always so freaking out about the unknown because they can't look over their shoulder in that moment. And a lot of coaches at high level say, "Oh, you have to check your shoulder and see what's over there," but no one practically can do that, right? No one has the time to do that. And this is a tangent, but it's very specific to this, because it took me being, all of my youth career, all of my college career, my 12-year pro playing career, and my 3-year pro coaching career, to finally figure out that, you know what? I can tell all of these keepers that they can turn out blindly no matter what the level of pressure is. And if they can turn quickly and take care of the ball, they'll be able to get out the other side. And just getting them to have that level of comfort to start doing that will change their distribution habits completely, change their comfort level with the ball at their feet, take away their panic. The panic only comes because we only see half the play. We only see the ball side. We see it getting closed down, but everyone on the field's on that side. And again, because of the nature of soccer, and this may not apply in like a over 40 men's league, you know what I mean? Or in like a really low level rec game, but the nature of like defending and pressure and all these things, like the defensive team comes over to the ball side.
Right.
And so it's always on. And so this, what we're about to talk about with phase 3 1v1 is the same idea, right? There's always a moment where, when that attacker's getting in, as soon as the 1v1 moment starts to happen, you have a very short window of, I don't know, a second, half a second, maybe. I mean, a very, very, very short window where you can be as explosive and fast as possible and probably take 2 or 3 massive steps, which at a fully developed athlete, 2 or 3 massive steps at top speed translates to, a lot of 8 yards, 10 yards even. Do you know what I mean? And if that happens immediately as the attacker's getting in on goal, then you're on top of them, right? Then you've established the proximity that we've been talking about in all these other moments. But against the best players in the world, against the most elite attackers of all time, you will be vulnerable, right? You will be vulnerable in that moment if they decide to shoot it with their first touch, and you're taking that risk to really close that space. You might get burned. And that's where, experience comes in, and trying this and trying to learn it comes in. But the idea is, again, before all that, can you read that the 1v1's about to happen? Can you get to that higher starting point? And then as soon as they get in, as soon as the 1v1 starts, 2 or 3 super aggressive hard steps to close 5 to 8 yards, right? But then it's all about control. And then when you do it this way, it's not even, you don't even have to worry about the speed of the attacker. Just get out super fast, and then you get body control. Then you prepare. And we'll talk about the shape for that in just a second. But what's your sort of 2 cents on that?
So I think I found, I guess, with my development and like thinking about this as the years went on, is trying to match that pace, or I guess play it a little slower than the attacker was coming at me. I found like I got caught in the middle all the time.
Yeah.
Like it was never enough to get myself close. And
The
with
middle's hard, right?
it
5 or
is,
6 yards
it's
from
so
attacker
hard.
shooting at you is really hard because you
Yeah,
should have time to react. But
right. And that's just the thing. And and then you get caught in that zone. I mean, I guess you could almost refer to it as like no man's land, but then they throw in, the blocking shape comes about like after so many years. And I mean, I always felt that middle ground, like that 5, 6 yards, was so hard to make saves because the ball's coming in so fast, and you haven't been able to take away enough space to where the ball can only go so high,
yeah.
and we're heading in that direction. But I mean, like if you're still 5, 6 yards away, like I mean, the ball could still be coming at your forehead
Hmm.
very fast. But if you're able to get closer, 2 yards, 1 yard away, the ball can only go so high. So you've kind of like limited where you're going to need to react to,
Hmm.
and then you close down the options available for where the ball can be or where the ball can
Yeah.
go. And
And
yeah.
go ahead, finish. Sorry.
Oh no, I mean it just I don't think I never figured that out. When I was, I mean, maybe a little later, because I mean, Bohonic had us playing pretty high all the
Hmm.
time. And that was when I started figuring out how to read 1v1s,
Yeah.
or just closing that space. But I remember thinking even before college, I mean, maybe even in the beginning, that it was like it felt like it was one or the other. It was either you make the
Yeah.
save from far away or you get really, really close. Like you don't want to put yourself in the middle because it just makes
Yeah.
it so difficult.
And you don't. That doesn't mean there won't be moments where that's going to happen anyway. And
Right.
sometimes those distances are just going to happen organically. So we do need to have a plan and a body shape for dealing with shots when they're taken from, 5, 6, 7 yards away from us. But everything that we're saying here is proximity. And in the last podcast, I think I made a note that or a point that, I've worked with a lot of really good goalkeepers over the years that didn't necessarily play 1v1s the way that I would teach it or the way that I see it as the best. But what they were so good at is just finding a way to get on top of the ball, get on top of the shooter, right? And if they're making those saves because they're able to do that, nothing else matters, right? All of this is just proximity. And then we talk about those shapes, really the blocking shapes, whatever, like, you know, if it works, it works. What I will say here, touching on our shape, like if we can get to within, and here's my this is also kind of, this will sort of start to open up a little bit of the discussion about sort of my problems with some of these blocking shapes. But our goal here is to find a way to get within, within inside of 5 yards of the attacker, I think, if we can.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we might not be able to get to that point, but that's why this really fast start is so important. But if we can get inside that distance, we shouldn't have to spread ourselves super wide to take away the goal, right? You shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
need your legs fully extended left and right and your arms fully extended left and right. Because if you're inside of 5 yards from the attacker when he's shooting, the target, I mean, if you're 12, 14, 16 yards from your line, the goal is not that big, right? The goal, if it isn't, you stretch yourself out and make yourself 6, 7 feet wide, the target's not that big for the attacker. So it doesn't really make any sense to try to take away the corners.
Mm-hmm.
And my big problem with blocking shapes is there's this emphasis on getting as big as possible, right? When you're actually just sort of leaving yourself vulnerable through the middle third of the goal.
Mm-hmm.
And most goals I feel like that are scored in phase 3 moments, where the keepers close down the attacker, and you see this every week in Major League Soccer. You see this every week in the Premier League. You see this every week in the Bundesliga. You see goals scored through the middle of the target, through
Yeah.
the goalkeeper's legs,
Yeah.
under the goalkeeper's armpit, over the goalkeeper's shoulder. And for me, that's all through the middle third of the field. So I'm not necessarily going to propose a blocking shape that I think works better than that. But what I will say, two things about blocking shape for me. If you can get inside of 5 yards, 4 yards is probably a little bit better. and you choose to go into a blocking shape, in my opinion, blocking shapes do not work if you're still moving towards the attacker. So you've done a great job. You've gotten close to the attacker. He has the ball at his feet. He goes to shoot, right? There's always a signal. There's a cue that he's going to shoot. Takes a prep touch, whatever. We can't get there, but it looks like he's going to shoot, and I can't win it with my hands. So I choose to establish a blocking shape. In that moment, for me, the way that I teach it now, you stop exactly where you are. You don't continue to advance. You stop where you're at. You're not going to tackle in a blocking shape. Stop where you are. Hold your ground. I would go one step further, say stop where you are, drop your knee to your heel, right? Dropping my knee to my standing leg heel, completely taking away the space between my legs and leaving my chest up tall and my hands in front of me. For me, that's a blocking shape, right? It's basically establishing a wall. You did all the work to get out super fast and super high, and then if they're going to shoot it, you're stopping. Because if you stop and you hold, and again, we're not trying to, another big sort of misinterpreted, I think it's really stupid personally. If you decide to go into a blocking shape, you should not also still be trying to react, right? Because if you leave yourself open to still trying to react in a blocking shape, again, I think you're probably going to give something away. You're going to be moving too much. So if you can get inside that 4 yards, I know I said 5 before, but 4 probably works better. 4, 3, 2. Really, this really is valuable at that point. Hands are in front of your body. And we talk about so you can see your hands. Because if you can see your hands in your peripheral vision, you're going to be able to keep your head where it's at. This is going to allow you to stay up nice and tall. And then if your knee drops down and we hold that space, that's a space where we're going to get hit a lot and make a lot of saves. It's going to keep us from falling on our butt, keep our head from going back, and we're going to have body control. So if I make a save off my body in that moment, I've got so much control. Right, I'm still able to then move, deal with the rebound, get to my feet again because only one knee's down, my other foot's still right there. I'm not leaning back, and that's as far as I go now with teaching a blocking shape. I don't talk about spreading. I don't talk about any of that other stuff. And if you can't get to that distance, if you can't get to 5 yards or inside of 5 yards, I should say 4, 3, or 2, and you're still further away, like we were talking about before, then I think you still have to be a goalkeeper. And that's where a lot of the other really bad stuff with blocking is happening too, is now you'll see that a shot might be taken in one of these 1v1 moments at a keeper from 7, 8 yards away, 9 yards away, and you see the keeper starting to spread before the shot's even taken, right? And then again, they're giving themselves away. I think all of you would be so surprised what you can still save with your typical goalkeeping habits inside of 8 yards, 5 to 8 yards if you can keep shape. And again, the most important thing there is that you can see your hands. If I can see my hands, and I'm not saying I have to point them straight ahead like this, but if I can see my hands as I'm getting set, my head can stay where it's at, and that's going to allow me to still move. And that's also going to free me up if it's shot super hard near my feet. We're not saying foot saves don't happen, right? But now I have control over my body, and I have the ability to make those foot saves because I kept my upper body, my head, my chest, and my shoulders out front. And the way I like to teach that, Will, is closer range doesn't mean you really change your set shape. It just means you drop your head and your chest and your shoulders a little bit lower. So you're not squatting down or sitting in a chair. You're leaning your chest forward a little bit more, and that should still allow you to have more control over your body. So that was a lot, and I went there for like 5 minutes without letting you say anything there. So again, there's a lot to unpack there. What do you think are some of the sort of key takeaways there, or any way to kind of summarize or make that more concise?
So I think, like you said, with going into the blocking shape, it's once you kind of establish that ground, you're not trying to react anymore. And I think when you try to do both, it makes things more difficult.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
whenever
it's effective.
when you commit to blocking, like you're essentially committing to getting hit with the ball. Like that's what's happening. You're not, I mean, if you can catch it, great, but you're not really gonna do anything besides that. Like that's kind of what you've decided to let happen. And then, from more than 6 yards away, if you go into that blocking shape, like I said in the beginning, a lot more of the goal is open. And, if you're like allowing yourself to get hit with the ball from 6, 7 yards, I mean, number one,
Yeah.
you're a smaller target and the goal's bigger, but also the ball's coming in way faster. And, it, as a keeper, you have to be able to keep your head in there
Hmm.
and be brave and accept the fact that you're going to get hit. But that's really hard to do when you're far away and the ball could still take any height,
Yeah.
and um, that was something that I kind of had in my head because, you know, obviously we need to get hit with the ball, and that's just the nature of the position. That's what you signed up for. But I don't think you should be subjecting yourself to getting blasted, like potentially in the face,
Yeah.
a lot.
I agree with that. I
Because if
agree with that.
that's what's happening, then you're probably going to get concussed, and you're probably not going to enjoy what you're doing as much. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason that goalkeepers are able to do what they do, and it's because there's a way to prevent those big
Yeah.
hits from happening often. Because I mean, that
Yeah.
can eat at you. If you're getting hit
Well,
like
that's
that
a
all the
big part of
time,
that's a big part of why coaching and training is so important, because
right?
this is a position that is, you're subjected to really getting injured if you're not doing things the right way.
Yeah, yeah. And so if that's happening all the time, then I mean, it's just going to be a negative experience eventually. I mean, maybe you can deal
Yeah.
with it for some time, but eventually you're going to get tired of getting hit like that. And so there's that aspect of it too. I mean, in terms of just safety, but then also the efficiency side of just being able to be more effective with keeping the ball out of the net.
Yeah. Yeah. So I tried, I pay a lot of attention online. I've been a big fan over the years of the Keeper Institute and Jillian Lloyd and the stuff that they do. And I really like a lot of their stuff there. They go into a lot of detail into different blocking shapes and why you block this way and then why you block that way and all that kind of stuff. And again, I'm not trying to knock anything anybody's doing. I just think that stuff has a place, but I think it's being overcoached right now, and I think it's making a lot of these moments a lot more complicated for keepers to actually be effective.
Mm-hmm.
But I made a comment on one of her posts this week about, we talk all the time about being able to see your hands,
Mm-hmm.
and how that, I honestly think it triggers something in your brain, that allows. I mean, it's simple. If I can see, if my hand's here, right, and you throw something at my face, I don't panic. I don't flinch, right? If
Right.
because I know that I can do this. I know that I
Yeah.
can use my hand to keep it from hitting me in the face. The same thing happens with all of these 1v1 moments, right? But especially, once we get inside of 8 yards, whether that's, like Will talked about at the beginning, there's still space between us and the shooter, and those are hard to deal with, or we're starting to get really close, and where I think it actually makes sense to block inside of, 4 and 3 yards. Um, but if you can't see your hands, no matter how good you are, once the ball's hit, your head's going to go back.
Yeah.
No matter how good you are, the
Yeah.
best goalkeepers in the world do it every week, and a lot of them sort of, I think a lot of these blocking techniques and these spread shapes, I think a lot of the reason that they've evolved the way that they have is because a lot of these approaches have sort of conceded that your head's going to go back, right? Because they're saying, okay, it's okay, we're going to flinch, so this is going to happen. So now we're going to put ourselves into this matrix shape that allows you to still make some saves. I think you can fix a lot of that just by bringing the hand. And it doesn't mean our arms are pointing straight at the ball. You can play with this. Look ahead, stand in any kind of goalkeeping shape, and just get to the point where you can wiggle your fingers and barely see them. That's all we're talking about here. It shouldn't change anything about your technique. If you can do that, your head can stay where it's at, and you're not going to get blasted in the face. And if your head stays where it's at, and your shoulders stay where they're at, and your hands stay where they're at, you're now allow yourself to control your whole body, right? And we start to get some of the ability to save and move that we're used to only having at shots that are from like 15 to 20 yards away. Now we start to feel what it's like to actually have some of that body control with stuff in close,
Mm-hmm.
right? With stuff in close. And again, it doesn't mean we're not going to make foot saves and stuff that ends up looking the same as a lot of these blocking saves look, right? But I can now make a great foot save and really control where my feet are. I mean, how many of us have dealt with a close range shot that was kind of like a yard or two next to our foot on one side, and we we start to fall away, we go in our butt, and we shoot our right hand and we shoot our right foot because we don't have any body control. We're not even sure which limb we're going to try to save it with.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of either hit it with both or miss it with both, right? And it still ends up kind of bouncing in the goal behind us. I mean, we've all done that.
Yeah.
And I just think that there's a better way. I think we can have more body control. And I think the biggest takeaway here, obviously the proximity to things, get out early, fast, close the ground. It's, can we see our hands? If we can see our hands, it will change the game, right? It will change the game, and start trying to challenge yourself to be able to stand up more and be more relaxed and make more saves. And I think you blow your mind instead of practicing always, always making foot saves and your hands are way back behind your body. Because at the end of the day, it's a saving line thing too. If I make a save, the ball hits my hand in front of my body, it's probably going to stay out. Ball hits my hand beside my body, 50-50 chance. Ball hits my hand back behind my body, maybe it goes out in, but, or maybe it stays out, but there's still just a strong chance that it's going to go in.
Mm-hmm.
And in most blocking shapes that you even see from the best goalkeepers in the world, their hands are way back behind their body. So we got to get away from that, in my opinion. And I'm gonna try not to like hammer hate on any of this stuff, but I just think the way that we're going about it doesn't work really well right now.
Yeah.
What else you got? Anything else?
No,
Didn't touch on patience yet. How does patience tie
true.
into all that? Our theme word.
I mean, with patience, like you're not going to want to. Well, I guess patience has to come after speed,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So
right. Well, that's why this is tricky.
yeah,
That's
and
why
so
phase 3 is challenging.
I guess initially when you read the situation, you want to close with as much speed, close the attacker with as much speed as you can. From there, once you've accomplished that, then you need to be patient. And so, like you said before, what do strikers want to make goalkeepers do? And that's go to the ground. And so, at the first sign of their heel moving back, if you immediately commit to doing something, the fake shots exist. So it's one fake and then you're on the ground and they're past you, or maybe you close them down and you've eliminated their ability to move forward anymore. So now they have to go to the side and then you have to go with them, so you need to be able to have your body under control in order to be effective in making those decisions. Because in that last moment, there's a lot of pressure on the striker to score where they should score. And so it's not going to be probably just the next touch is a shot on goal. There could be a lot of different things that happen there.
Yeah, that's good. And I also want to make sure we're not being misinterpreted here. We are not saying when an attacker gets in on a 1v1, picks his head up and looks at the goalkeeper, that you should sprint at him.
No.
You know what I mean? Because any attacker gets the ball at their feet and looks up at the target and you're sprinting at them, they're just going to roll it past you.
Yeah.
The moment that you have to cover the ground explosively that we're talking about is literally like probably not even a full second, honestly. It's probably half of a second. And you have to be super decisive that you're going to close in that moment. Because this window to close, take those 2 or 3 really explosive steps is very small. It's right at the beginning. If you don't do it, then you do have to match the striker at his pace or her pace, right? Because as soon as their first action to get by is either going to be to beat your defender or to receive the ball or touch the ball, right? It's in that moment where they're distracted and not thinking about you and scoring a goal, but they're thinking about finishing, getting around the defender, or they're thinking about getting the ball under control. That's your brief moment, your small window in time to get out. And then after you've done that, that's when we have to be patient. That's when you have to keep control of your body, not give anything away, and continue to close, continue to close, continue to close. And if you get to that point where you're kind of both right there in each other's face and they have taken care of the ball the whole time and you don't know what to do, that's okay. Just wait. Because if you're able to do that and you can stand that attacker up and allow him to, because he's going to panic at that moment. And you've done your job. And if you've been able to do that, then they're going to either shoot it into your body or then they're going to try to dribble around you. And that's kind of our whole goal in these things. And my last point with this is it's not okay to give up goals through your legs. Okay. And that's That's my biggest criticism of the modern approach. You notice here that we almost never use the word modern in what we talk about with goalkeeping, because I think it's a buzzword that literally means
yeah,
all the things about goalkeeping that I don't want any of my goalkeepers to do. And that's extreme. But it's not okay to concede goals through your legs. That's the middle of the goal. That's the middle of the target. That's one you should be saving every single time. So if in training with your team or with your goalkeeper coach, or worse off in games, if you're giving up goals in 1v1 moments through your legs, your approach to defending phase 3 1v1s is all wrong. All wrong. And lastly, our big stressor last week in phase 2s was now every goalkeeper out there wants to play phase 1, where it's just obvious they're going to get the ball, and if they're not, then it's phase 3, where they're going to stand up, right, and go into some kind of blocking shape at some point. Mm-hmm. Last week's important. If you haven't listened to last week, go back and listen, because so many of these moments that we're talking about as phase 3 probably could be dealt with in a phase 2 technique, right? If there's a moment where the attacker is taking a prep touch to shoot and you're within 6 or 7 yards, throw everything that we've said so far out the window and go win the ball with your hands, because winning the ball with your hands is the only way in any of these moments when the shot's being taken. Putting your hands on it is the only way you can guarantee that the ball's not going to go in the goal in that moment. In none of these phase 3 approaches can we guarantee that, because we're not getting our hands to the ball. The shooter's going to shoot it first. We're trying to do the best that we can, but we don't want that. We don't want phase 3. Phase 3 is the least advantageous for us. Phase 1 is the best. Phase 2 is a little bit better. Phase 3 is the worst. We don't want to be in this moment unless we have to. And if we have to, play it the right way. High starting point, get out early, surprise the attacker, and then be patient. Have your hands in front of you where you can use them. That's all I got.
That's good. I think we crushed it, to be honest. That was everything, I think.
Yeah, I hope. This is one that, honestly, probably from the very beginning of me starting this whole GK4FREE thing, this is like a big one for me. And so yeah. We'll see. We'll probably get a handful of listeners, and we'll just keep posting it and posting it and posting it, because I do think this is an important one. And there's so much room for goalkeepers to be better 1v1. When I was coming up, when I was getting recruited, and when I got into college, like, the expectation for the goalkeepers was that they could, kick well. And I don't want to say far, but could kick far. That was, consistently kick the ball into the other team's half. That they were good 1v1, brave, able to make saves 1v1, and then they were good at crosses.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, like, none of those things are points of emphasis anymore.
Yeah.
And now we've gotten to the point where, be a soccer player, but if you're not making saves, it's okay. If you're not coming for crosses, it's okay. Yeah. If you're not brave in those moments, it's okay. And I honestly think the time for this is it's coming to an end. I think there's going to be a big shift soon to goalkeepers being good goalkeepers again. And obviously that's important that they're good with their feet, but I think the evolution of the game has happened now that now everyone has to be good with their feet. So now the good goalkeeping is going to come back into it as well.
Yeah.
Because right now it's not there, honestly. It's not there. You see soft goals. You've always seen soft goals every week. I mean, mistakes happen, but now it's soft goals in these moments that I feel like we're always so much more preventable.
Yeah. I guess we'll see what's to come.
Yeah, we'll see. So what else? Anything else you want to touch on before we get out of here and get ready for Thanksgiving?
I don't think so. I think we kind of covered it in the beginning with what I've got coming. Yeah, that's it, I think. What's our social media? My Instagram's @WillMarshall_1. My YouTube.
I gotta get your name up there. I apologize.
Oh, it's all good.
It should be Will Marshall on there.
Yeah. YouTube is Will Marshall, and then my website, marshallfitness.shop. That's okay. It. That's all three.
Very cool. And then I'll slide out of the way here.
Oh yeah, that's perfect. Look at that.
You can see my @HuntGillstrap for Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And my YouTube is youtube.com/HunterGillstrap Goalkeeping. And obviously our sponsor, Aviata Sports, excuse me. And I have to apologize to them too, because honestly, like they've been taking care of me since 2011 as my glove sponsor, which is awesome, and I appreciate them so much. But I still don't know if it's Aviata or
Oh yeah,
Aviata.
I don't know that either.
I don't have a clue. So Trevor, I'm going to ask you that. If you've made it this far, I'm assuming you probably haven't. But I need to find out how to pronounce this brand. But either way, go check out their website, Aviata or aviatasports.com. Follow them on social. They've got a lot of really good Black Friday stuff coming up. So thank you guys. We appreciate you sticking around with us. We hope everybody has a happy Thanksgiving. Attitude of gratitude. You know, I couldn't be more thankful for all the support that's allowed us to get to the place that we're at right now in only 3 months or something like that. So
yeah, wow.
So sky's the limit. We're coming to take over the world in a positive way, to spread some good goalkeeping knowledge out there for everybody that wants to learn.
Sky's the limit.
Sky's the limit. All right, Willie, sign us off.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you sometime in the future.
All right.